waiting for Salvo to join in. Sorry to keep you waiting, Nidhi ma'am. Sorry to keep you waiting, sir.
Absolutely all right.
He's here with us.
Okay.
We are waiting for director ma'am and principal ma'am also to join in. Just a few minutes.
वॉल्यूम उतना ही रहेगा
Salvo, na? So, Salvo is also here with us. Welcome, Dr. Salvo.
मेरी इससे ज्वाइन करती हूँ आवाज इसमें बहुत धीमी आ रही है
You're not audible. Dr. Salvo, you're not audible.
इनकी आवाज तो आ ही नहीं रही
Principal ma'am and director ma'am has also joined us.
Preeti, I think there is an echo at that end.
Yes, sir, I'll just mute myself because Ankita will preside over now for the moderation. I was just worried about Dr. Salvo is not audible. Can you just test once?
No, that is what I'm saying. There is an echo at his end.
At his end? Is
Yeah.
it?
Or maybe he is.
स्पीकर तो होगा भी नहीं कोई
We are also live on YouTube. So if the friends of the participants are not able to join, I'm sharing the YouTube link here in the chat box. So you could please share it with your friends so they can watch us live out there. दिलीप जी मैम की इधर से एको हो रहा है थोड़ा अलग अलग सिस्टम से लॉग्ड इन है क्या मैम दोनों दिलीप जी
बंद कर दिया, एको करेगी दो में से। प्रीति, प्रीति,
Yes, ma'am.
हाँ, now we can start.
I request all the participants to please mute themselves. And I would request Ms. Ankita Sharma to please preside over and moderate the program. Ma'am, ekdam mute. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Now we can start. अब ठीक है, बस अब ठीक है दीदी, हो गया। अब आवाज भी आ रही है इसमें, और किसका एक बार वहां जाके चेक करो इसमें क्यों नहीं आ रही आवाज। हमारी लैपटॉप में भी नहीं आ रही, दोनों में नहीं आ रही आवाज। नहीं हो गया।
Good afternoon, everyone. All our eminent speakers, Dr. Sanjay Arora, Nidhi ma'am, and Dr. Salvatore. We are glad to have you here with us today. And we're also joined today by Dr. Seema Agarwal. She's our principal. And Dr. Rashmi Chaturvedi. She's our director. Good afternoon, ma'am. Without any further delays, let's begin with this seminar, this international webinar. A Czech proverb says, learn a new language and get a new soul. Language and its importance in the world cannot be quantified in words. It acts as a binding force among the communities of the world. The pandemic, on the one hand, it brought misery and grief, but it also brought the world closer. We're now connected to each other more closely than was ever imagined. And this has made knowing foreign languages the need of the hour. So we have with us today three very eminent speakers who have been uh, indulging in the study of languages and have given serious contribution in the study in the area of languages. So without further ado, I first of all invite our principal, Dr. Seema Agarwal, to give a welcome address. Ma'am.
Thank you, Ankita. Namaskar to everyone who have joined for this international webinar, as this is the blessing of all this COVID and lockdown, that frequently we are conducting webinar, and when we conduct a webinar, we can invite eminent speakers from any place of the globe. So today I feel the privilege to name this webinar as an international webinar, because we have speaker from out of India also. So namaskar to everyone, all the speakers, all the participants who have joined this webinar. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome all the three eminent speakers of this international webinar conducted by the college on the topic Foreign Languages, Significance and Avenues. I heartily welcome Dr. Salvatore Jiffer. I think I have pronounced your name well, for accepting our invitation and joining us on this virtual platform. A warm welcome to Dr. Nidhir Singhani, Head European Language Department, University of Jaipur. I just want to add in our one of the speaker, Dr. Salvatore, who is visiting senior lecturer and literary translator from University of Malta. So we welcome you, sir, in this virtual platform. Then we have with we can say our own Sanjay Arora sir, because whenever we call you sir for anything, always you treat us on priority basis and accept our invitation. Dr. Sanjay Arora sir is Associate Professor, Department of English, Central University, Rajasthan, Kishangarh. So again, I welcome all the participants and all the faculty members from our college and other colleges who have joined us. As we all know that foreign language provide a competitive edge in career choices. One is able to communicate in second language if someone learns any of the foreign language. The advantage of learning foreign language are mushrooming as the world become increasingly globalized. Everything we are expanding, and including we are expanding our learning and knowledge of languages also through this impact of globalization. So I think that we have three eminent speakers of their field, and they all will benefit us a lot, and this learning will be a great experience for all of us. So again, a very big thank you to all the speakers, all students who are here joined us for this learning process. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. With your continuous support, we have been able to organize this international webinar. And without further ado, I would like to introduce our first speaker for the day, Dr. Sanjay Arora. He has been a very generous person. He has always been accepting our invitations and has been supporting us throughout, sharing his knowledge of linguistics and language with us for a very long time. And Dr. Arora is currently the head of department, Center for English Studies, Central University of Rajasthan. He is also the national president of ELTI, that is English Language Teachers Association of India. Sir, we welcome you, and
Thank you.
please share your knowledge with us.
Thank you, Ankita. Um, Good afternoon, Madam Rashmi Chaturvedi, Director, Kanodia Mahavidyalaya, Madam Seema Agarwal, Principal, Kanodia, Preeti, my student, if I can say so. I don't remember teaching her, but she remembers being taught by me. So that's fine. Ankita. And my panelists, Dr. Salvatore, Dr. Nidhi, whom I met yesterday also in one of the other virtual meetings, and all the fellow participants, students here. Now the topic that I'll be talking about, roughly, if I can verify, do I have 20 minutes or 15 minutes? Because I think we are running a little late. Do I have 15 minutes or 20 minutes? Can someone confirm?
The 15 to 20
Okay.
minutes.
So accordingly, I'll just fine tune this because I was supposed to talk on oral and written communication in international English language testing system. So more or less, the points that I'll be discussing about this overlap in terms of reading and speaking and writing. So I'll just try to cover them up within the next 15-20 minutes. So for the convenience of our students, in fact, I would like to share my screen. Um, when we talk about this test, which is an international test, which is acceptable in countries like UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and in fact, European countries, many of the European countries now, I'm told that even American universities have started accepting it. Earlier, they were accepting this TOEFL, Test of English as a Foreign Language. So they were accepting that score in TOEFL, but now they've also started accepting Ielts score. Now, to understand this test, and it's just not the test only, means maybe some of you may feel that, okay, we are not going to go for this test. So what's the use of this talk for us? It is an overall competence test, and those of you who are interested in communicative competence, both written and oral, this talk is for you. Now the parameters on which this test actually tests the candidate, these are four parameters. Number one, fluency and coherence. Number two, it is lexical resources, which is also synonymous to vocabulary. And number three is grammatical range and accuracy. I'll be talking about this range and accuracy in the next few slides. And the fourth is pronunciation. So these are the four parameters on which test takers are tested, and they are evaluated on a band score of 0 to 9, where 0 is the lowest score. Maybe someone doesn't utter a word, gets a 0, and if you utter something, maybe the range keeps on increasing. The band score goes on increasing, and as per your competence level, it goes on to 5, 6, 7, 8, and those who have a native-like competence can even reach up to a band 9. So that is about the speaking test. In terms of writing, there are two writing tests. One is for those who go for a general test, and for those who go for IELTS general, they are given a test where the first question is a letter, which they have to write. There are 3 points, and on the basis of those 3 points, they have to develop answer number 1. And then number 2 is of 250 words, and that's an extended piece of writing where they're given a situation and they're asked to give their opinion on that. So accordingly, we have this task achievement and task response in terms of question 1 and question 2. Similarly, for those who are going for studies abroad, they have to go in for Ielts Academic, and for that, the first question is not a letter. The first question is either a graph, a bar graph, maybe a pie chart, maybe a table, maybe a comparative picture, some tabular representation, and on the basis of that, the test takers have to write 150 words comparing and contrasting the situations there. And then we have the second question, which is again a situation, and again it has to be developed in 250 words, where most of the time the test takers are expected to write on both the aspects of that topic. For example, there could be a question like, some people say that old age homes are good for the elderly. Some others disagree. Taking into consideration both the views, give your opinion from your field of experience. I'm just giving a very random sample of a question that could be asked in question number 2. Now here, the second question actually expects the test takers to take both the sides and then give their opinion. If you miss out on one and write about only the other side of it, you may not go to a higher band score. So that is important here. And that also applies to questions that you may be answering in your exams, where you are asked a question and you miss the track, you go off track, you digress. So that could be one of the other things that you can link it up with your writing task in terms of your exams. The second parameter in writing is again lexical resources, which is vocabulary. And the third one is cohesion and coherence. I'll be talking about this in greater detail in the next few slides. And then we again have the grammatical range and accuracy. So these are the 4 parameters. Grammatical range and accuracy is common in the 2 tests, speaking and writing. And so is coherence, and likewise lexical resources. So the point of difference in writing and speaking is that there is an added component of pronunciation in speaking, and there is an added component of task achievement and task response in writing. So that's the basic difference between the 2. So now we move on to the detailing of these words, these parameters that we were just referring to. Now there are 2 terms which are used in an overlapping manner. Number 1 is fluency and number 2 is accuracy. Now, our past system of language teaching has trained us to be accurate. As a result, if we are not accurate, we tend not to speak, we tend not to write, because we think that we will start speaking and writing only when we start speaking and writing correctly. Now, the problem here is that if you have this kind of a mindset, you will not be able to perform at all, whether it is speaking or it is writing. So, the first thing is for all of you, in fact, those of you who may be at a very elementary level of your competence level in terms of English, because this title of this webinar says that for it is foreign languages. Now, English as such is not a foreign language. We give this status to English as a second language, which is used beyond the very basic purposes also, beyond the very essential purposes also. Like we will be using English even in uh, general conversations, maybe in malls and shops and various other places where it's not required, where you don't need to talk to the shopkeeper in English, but you'll find there are people who would be interacting with the shopkeepers in English or would prefer to do that. Similarly, when we talk about a foreign language, so it has a very limited purpose. And I think Dr. Salvatore and Dr. Nidhi will be trying to highlight this aspect of the foreign language more. So, what are the limitations of a foreign language? Means you don't use it beyond the classroom situation. You're learning French, you're learning Spanish, you're learning German, but then it doesn't go beyond the classroom situation because you do not have an exposure, or means you do not have people with whom you can interact with. So, broadly, that is the difference between a second language and a foreign language. So, we talk about fluency, and if we target accuracy, then in fact, the problem would be that learners, in fact, will feel a little intimidated and they may not be able to perform that well, or they may just prefer to keep silent. They may prefer not to write a word. So, fluency is that ability to speak and write that language uh, quite easily and comfortably, even if there are errors. There is scope of errors in fluency. In accuracy, we do not commit errors. And that is the point where most of these second language users of English, or even if we call them as foreign language users of English, they will falter or they will be hesitant. So, coherence is the next important point here. Uh, we talk about fluency and coherence. Now, coherence is applicable both to writing and to speaking. Now, coherence, what does that mean? It means a kind of logical linkage. It has a kind of logical connection of thoughts and ideas. We talk about organization, unity of thoughts and ideas. Now, that is where the role of cohesion and coherence comes in. Now, cohesion is the uh, interknitting of threads in between the sentences. For example, if I want to talk about my daily routine, I say that I get up at 6 in the morning. Soon after getting up, I perform my daily chores. Thereafter, I read the newspaper or skim through the newspaper and start getting ready for my office. Now, that's one way of saying it. And if I want to put it in a simpler manner, it could be this way, that I get up at 6 in the morning, I perform my daily chores, I read the newspaper, I do this, I do that. It becomes quite monotonous and dry and dull. So, advanced users of language are expected to use coherence markers more often than elementary users. And this is what this test also expects, and this is what you as students of English are also expected at the higher education level, at the undergraduate and postgraduate level, when you write your answers or when you in fact speak at some particular platform. So that is where the role of coherence and cohesion comes in. So, cohesion is the interconnection of the sentences one after the other, and in between the sentences also you have the use of pronouns and conjunctions. So, all those are also those cohesive markers. And in between the sentences and the paragraphs and the long extended text that you speak or write, there we talk about the role of coherence. So, there are some examples given here. and I don't need to emphasize them much because I think you must be familiar with them. And here are some of the other examples of how you can develop an extended piece of text, how you can begin the text, how you can develop it, and how you can conclude it. So these are some of the other coherence markers. And these are the examples of cohesion. So we have the pronouns, we have articles, and most of the time there is an anaphoric reference going back. Anaphoric reference means the reference goes back to the previous context. When I say, my name is Sanjay, I teach English. Now this I refers to the noun that has been used in the previous sentence. Um, my name is Sanjay, or it refers to I, the complement in the sentence. So similarly, means we have these words which will be referring back. You have these demonstratives, this, that, these, those. You have conjunctions, coordinators, subordinators, all used there to add two things, to make a contrast, to talk about an option. And likewise, we have ellipses, proforms, which are a little technical, but then I'll simplify it for you. Maybe ellipsis, we can say that if someone asks you, do you like chocolates? And you say yes. So what you have ellipted or dropped, ellipsis means dropping the obvious element. So what you've dropped in this response, yes, is you've dropped the very obvious element, I like chocolates. Because that yes implies that yes, I like chocolates. So you drop the obvious. So that is ellipsis, broadly speaking. And then we have the pro form. You have pronouns. Pronouns are used in place of nouns, and proforms are used in place of other forms beyond nouns. These could be nouns, these could be noun phrases, these could be clauses even. So like we say, do you like chocolates? One answer is yes, where you have an ellipsis, and the other answer is yes, I do. Now this do is in fact that word which is in fact talking about that elliptic form, like chocolates. So that is a little technical. And then we have synonyms and antonyms which are used in sentences. We keep using them. We try to avoid using the same word again and again in repeated sentences that are coming up. So that is what we have in terms of cohesion. And broadly speaking, fluency and coherence. What is expected in this test of Ielts is this, that you how fluent you are in your response. Are you taking time to answer the question? Are you pausing, or are you immediately responding? Means how quick your thought process is. So that is being tested, and then how you speak, how you carry on that extended piece of discussion. Because this interview in speaking in this test lasts for 12 to 14 minutes, and in that you are tested differently. Like initially you will have very basic questions, followed by certain questions which will have something related to the field of experience. Maybe you could be asked to talk about your favorite color, your favorite piece of dress, and something similar. And then you have an extended piece of say an extempore, if I could put it this way, where you're given a topic, and thereafter you have to speak on that topic for 2 minutes. So that's a long extended talk which you give uninterrupted, and thereafter there are follow-up questions related to the same topic which you get in part 2. And those questions are a little challenging in nature. They probe more into your analytical, critical skills, your thinking skills, and how you in fact come up with your thought process and ideas related to that, and accordingly your band score differs from maybe a band 5 to 6, 7, 8, and 9. So here this is what is tested, and how organized you are in your thought, especially in the second part of it, where you are to talk about these things in a more extended manner. So there, this is what is tested. And this also applies, this coherence, as I said, it also applies, cohesion and coherence, applies to writing as well. So in the writing test also, it's seen that how organized your thought process is, how you begin, how you develop, and how you conclude. That maybe the comparison and contrast in that graph, or maybe the letter that you're writing, or that essay of 250 words that you're writing. So how organized your thought process is how you are developing it, how logical it is, or how digressed you are in your writing skills. So it applies there also. So I've covered up these three parts. I'll not focus much on this, and I'll take you on to some of these discourse markers. Uh, so we have these different discourse markers which can be used in different contexts. We have these discourse markers used for addition. So these are some of the common ones for addition. The highlighted ones, the ones in bold, are less often used, and the ones which are not in bold, they are more often used. So if you want to upgrade yourself, you could try using the less often used uh, addition markers. And similarly for adversative, it is common to use but, still, yet, and however, nevertheless are less often used. So for a higher band or for an advanced competence level, you could use the ones in bold. So similarly for reason, we have these uh, discourse markers. For result, we have these, consequently is less used. You will use so more often, therefore more often, does more often. Then for purpose, in fact, we have these discourse markers, and for comparison, I think we have been using these uh, quite effectively. Now, in lexical resources, we talk about vocabulary. Now, we do have words which are lying dormant in our vocabulary. We do not use them more often, so they just go into that kind of, there's a kind of fossilizing stage that the words get onto, because if you're not using these words more often, you will tend to forget these words. And these two words that I deliberately made an effort to make them a part of my vocabulary, and I keep quoting them at different platforms, are flossy, nosy, nihilipilification, which is the act of underestimating someone. Now I had to make a conscious effort to retain this word in my vocabulary. So the pronunciation of the word, the spellings, and also the meaning, and also the context in which I can use it so that I can associate and remember. And the second word is this this is flossy-nosy-nihilipilification, and the other one is supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, which is now very commonly used in these talk shows, these reality shows on television. You must have come across this word, which means superb. So that's a compliment which you can give to someone that way. So likewise, when we want to add on to the lexical resources, a very common problem that most of the students come up with is they feel that we will be cramming words. Like they say that, okay, let us cram 10 words per day, or 5 words, or 15 or 20 words. Someone has to appear for this SAT or this CAT exam. So they feel that, okay, I'll cram as many words as I can per day and then improve upon my vocabulary. That's a temporary phase, and I doubt whether those words you will be able to retain longer, because retention is more important than just knowing or just getting to know the meaning of that word in a particular situation, because you'll have to retain those words. So the range of your vocabulary is tested in both the skills, speaking and in writing. If you have a wider range, your score is bound to go high. If you have a confined range of words, obviously the score will remain on an average level of 5 to 6. So there are these lexical chunks which you, in fact, they are not very unusual ones, but these chunks are those words which come together. Now, when we say stay within or at the bakers, we don't say on the bakers. Means that's a collocational chunk. It will be fixed. Get out of or ran out of. Now, these are phrases which are fixed, and you can't tamper with them. You can't change them, because if you want to change them, then of course entirely the meaning will change. So you don't need to memorize words. You have to ensure that those words that you are missing out on, uh, which are those words? For example, you're using the language, you're speaking something, you're writing something, and you stumble across a word, you are not able to get that word. Probably that word is coming to you in your mother tongue. So try to make use of those, make a note of those words where you are stumbling. And next time, try to ensure that means you do not falter there. Uh, then in grammatical range and accuracy, I'll just, I think, quickly let you know about this range. When we talk about this range, we are talking about complex noun phrases, we are talking about complex verb phrases, we are talking about subordinate clauses, not simple sentences or compound sentences. Simple sentences and compound sentences will take you to an average band, and complex sentences, complex verb phrases, noun phrases are going to take you to a higher band score. And similarly, it's applicable both to speaking and in writing. Both ways it's applicable. Then the error density. Now we talk about accuracy here. We were talking about fluency earlier. Now we're talking about accuracy here. So if you're accurate, so you get a band 9. And if you are somewhere faltering at places, so accordingly your band score will fluctuate. It will differ depending on the error density. So if the density of error is more, the band score will go dipping down, and if it is less frequent, the errors are less frequent, then accordingly means it will be somewhere in the average range or maybe at the higher level. Some errors are such that we actually know, okay, sorry, while speaking, I think at times we go wrong and we realize, oh my God, I said this, I shouldn't have said this, this is the word I should have used, or this is the structure I should have used. So these are non-habitual errors. You know that this is wrong, but sometimes either out of that haste to speak, you go wrong, or in that haste to write, you go wrong. So that is what it is. I'll not talk about this. I'll just quickly take you through these subordinators. These are the simple ones which you all are familiar with. And these are some of the less frequently used subordinators. So we can try to make use of them more frequently. Um, and that's the next one here. And these are the complex noun phrases that I was referring to. Uh, Now, how you're using them, you're using the head word, you're using a pre-modifier, you're using a post-modifier, using that complete chunk of it. How effectively you can use that, that is where you are being tested here. And these are some of the complex verb phrases. Um, and then ideally it is expected that you as users should be using passive voice so that you get rid of unnecessary words. So passive voice is what is expected, and I'll just not talk more deeply about pronunciation, and I'll just familiarize you with these basic things related to the clarity and also the stress, because the stress works at two levels: word stress and sentence stress. So you need to be familiar with the content and structured words. So content words are those words which are meaningful words like nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs, and the remaining words are in the category of structured words. So when we speak English, we ideally should focus only on the content words, which we actually don't do, and the structured words should go unnoticed. We are in the habit of speaking English the Indian way. The way I am speaking English or you speak English is not the standard way in which English is expected to be spoken. But that's okay. Means we do not means today we do not mind that much, and the world has also accepted that English the way it is, the Indian English that is coming up the way it is. So even the native speakers, there was a survey conducted in UK which said that only 2% of speakers of English in UK can adhere to the standards they have laid down for the world. So we do not stand anywhere in terms of our pronunciation or in terms of our adhering to those great standards that the Brits have laid for the world. So just continue to speak the way it is coming to you without bothering about all these technicalities of pronunciation at this stage. I don't say that we have to completely discard them, but once we start speaking, once we start using the language, then you should make an effort to go ahead. that, okay, once you are at a particular reasonable level of communication, thereafter you can escalate that and go ahead. So some of the commonly mispronounced words. So I think I'll stop here because I have taken around 20 minutes, and maybe I'll leave some scope for questions. And if there are any, I'll take it towards the end. So thank you for this. Over to you, Ankita.
Thank you so much, sir. Thanks a lot for sharing with us all of these intricacies of appearing for IELTS. I'm sure the students have gained a lot out of this because IELTS is an important exam, especially for all of those who are looking to build a future in foreign countries, any of the countries, maybe US or Australia, anywhere. So IELTS becomes an extremely important exam for all of these people. Um, Next, thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Our next speaker is Dr. Nidhir Singhani. She is an assistant professor of French and head of the European Languages Department at University of Rajasthan, Jaipur, and she specializes in translation and interpretation. She has done several interpretation projects with organizations such as UNESCO. She pursued MA in French from Jawaharlal Nehru University in New Delhi and has completed her PhD in French from University of Rajasthan. Net exam in French in 2005. In 2019, she was awarded Women's Excellence Award for her contribution in promotion of French language in Rajasthan by Rajniti Ki Pathshala, Jaipur. Ma'am, we are very happy to have you here with us today, and I present the floor to you now. Ma'am, over to you.
Thank you, Ankita. Namaskar, good afternoon, bonjour, guten Morgen. Am I audible?
Ma'am, I'm sorry to interrupt you once. Sanjay sir, can you please stop sharing your screen?
Okay. Okay. Yeah, is that okay?
Yes, thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Ma'am, please continue.
Yeah, thank you. Namaskar, good afternoon, bonjour, guten Morgen. At the outset, I would like to thank Principal Ma'am Dr. Seema Agarwal, Director Ma'am Dr. Rashmi Chaturvedi, and Dr. Preeti Sharma for inviting me to speak at the international webinar on foreign languages, significance, and avenues. I feel extremely privileged for sharing this podium today with Dr. Sanjay Arora sir and Dr. Salvatore. Now, in today's world, speaking one foreign language is not enough. Students who speak several languages will increase their chances of finding job, whether at home or abroad. Learning another language enriches the mind and opens up new horizon, both personal and professional. English, French, and German are the three official working languages of the European Union. In absolute number, German is the second most spoken language on the continent of Europe. However, when it comes to native speaker, German is number one. For centuries, the language served as a lingua franca in larger parts of the European continent. It serves to continue this purpose as an important second language in Central and Eastern Europe. And in the English-speaking world, German is also the third most taught foreign language. In addition to that, it comes as a 10th place, as one of the major languages of the world. On the other hand, France is renowned for its culture, cuisine, lifestyle, has influence that extend beyond its borders. Spoken on all 5 continents by more than 75 million native speakers and with over 235 million speakers who speak it fluently, French is definitely a language that you should learn. But French is also much more than, a lot of speakers throughout the world. It is a language of culture, with centuries of history and cultural evolution. French is the official language of 29 countries. Now, the large number of French-speaking countries also due to France's very important colonial past. As a result, French language has become established all over the world. The former French colonies are present all over the world and have, for the most part, kept the use of the French language. Now they are considered to be the French-speaking countries. Now, in addition to these countries, France has also, several overseas territories from the former colonial empires located in the 5 continents. The popularity of the language in the world goes back to the Middle Ages. In the 12th and the 13th centuries, for example, the epic in the literature of France held a very prestigious position among the elite and the noble class in Europe. From 17th century, the French language was simplified, it was polished, and was considered to be langue de politesse, that is the polite language. Now, talking about history of foreign languages in India, FLT, which started in India nearly a century ago, and during the colonial period, in the blind mimesis of the pattern of education in British schools and universities, there were two major foreign languages, that is French and German, that were introduced in the country only in certain schools and universities. The generous and humanitarian vision of our first Prime Minister of India, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, gave an impetus to foreign language studies in India. Gradually, the situation changed and the departments of foreign languages have been established in many universities. Now, in recent years, the Indian society has undergone many changes, both social and geopolitical. Now, these have generated a growing interest in learning foreign languages, including French and German in particular. Therefore, it's not surprising to see the emergence of several French departments and several German departments in India to meet the learners of foreign languages. Now, talking about the necessity of learning foreign languages. Now, after the independence of India, it became imperative to have knowledge of technology and that of scientific know-how. The priority of the country was now directed to attain economic independence, and this meant the industrialization of the country. And for this, it was primordial to know other languages apart from English. Social scientists, scholars studied in detail the social problems of India, and the outcome of the study revealed that the dependency on the Anglo-Saxon English-speaking world did not suffice. To enter into contact with the non-speaking world, it was necessary to have knowledge of foreign languages other than English. And that is how French and German started to become popular in India. And in the age of globalization, the knowledge of foreign languages enhances career opportunities and opens several gateways to new avenues. There are many apparent reasons to learn French and German. Undoubtedly, the ability to speak these languages can open up new opportunities in various sectors globally. Now, talking about the civil and diplomatic services, for example. Now, learning foreign languages, they will boost your quest to gain employment in civil services, especially if you opted for the Foreign Service Department. Now, globalization has changed the face of the world. Therefore, government entities like External Affairs Ministry, Tourism Department, Foreign National Embassies, they offer various job opportunities to candidates who are proficient in French and German. Like any other intelligence agency, the Indian version of the Government Secret Service is also looking for people who can speak multiple languages. To add up, French is one of the working languages and the official language of the United Nations, of UNESCO, EU, NATO, International Olympic Committee, International Red Cross, and with the requisite qualification, the possibilities of working in these sectors are always on the high side. Now, talking about the foreign embassies. Now, after learning foreign languages, one can apply for position in embassies in India, where there are various kinds of jobs in the embassy, but they are primarily administrative. For example, one can work as customer support, you can work as receptionist, dealing with passports and visas, IT technical staff. One can also work as translator, interpreter in the embassies. Indeed, career prospects in embassy, they offer a great platform to gain experience and have exposure to the multicultural environment. Now, talking about a career as a teacher, lecturer, trainer, French and German languages, as I mentioned, are the most popular foreign languages taught in India in schools, in colleges, and universities. Therefore, there's a growing demand of teachers teaching these two languages at all levels. Talking about translator and interpreter. Now, career prospects as an interpreter and translator are highly in demand. With the ever-increasing digitalized world and the concept of work from home, I've opened up several avenues in domains such as translator, interpreter, proofreader, editor, content writer. So one can do this as a freelance translator and interpreter for embassies. You can work for businesses, education institutions. Now, for this, a native proficiency in French and German is required, and the eligibility criteria is usually a master in French German or a C1 or C2 level. But with experience, one can also consider the role of specialist translation in diverse areas, let's say literary, legal, medical, technical, and also financial. The new education policy, for example, has given impetus to translation studies. Therefore, translation of famous works of India and that of France and Germany can be made available in several languages through translation. For example, during the colonial period in India, French literature became quite popular. And the translation of these works in Hindi was used as a stick against the British to liberate the country from the English dominance. For instance, Frenchmen translated the French literary work Taille, par Anatole France, in 1924 as Ahem Kar in Hindi. La Tulipe Noire d'Alexandre Dumas, translated in 1931 as Kaidi by Rishabh Charan Jain. 93, translated in Hindi as Balidan by Ganesh Shankar Vidyarthi. So all these are exemplary translations done to expose the Indians to the literary world other than that of the British. Now, coming back to travel, tourism, and hospitality industry, learning a foreign language plays a vital role in travel and tourism sector. The foreign language skills can be helpful to assist tourists to communicate with French, German-speaking people. There are millions of European tourists who visit India every year. Therefore, fluency in these two languages provide excellent job prospects in the tourism industry as guide, as escorts. And now the job prospects in multinationals. Now, France has its multinational spread all over the globe. With more than hundreds of French international brands, for example, you've got BNP Paribas, L'Oréal, Renault, Christian Dior, Chanel, Carrefour, Peugeot, Michelin, to name a few. So many MNCs are looking to expand their footprints in the French-speaking Africa, Europe, and other parts of the world. Several IT companies such as HCL, Tech Mahindra, TCS, Wipro, Infosys, they hire language experts and send them overseas in French-speaking Europe, Canada, North and Central Africa. And moreover, one can find plentiful amount of opportunities in the export sector as well. The sizable number of multinational companies in India come from France and other francophone countries. So knowledge of French not only opens the doors of these MNCs in India, but also abroad. Likewise, Germany is also home to large number of economic global players. Siemens, Volkswagen, Adidas, Lufthansa, they're globally recognized brands and corporations. The advantages and benefits of learning foreign languages are immense. The more languages you know, the easier it is to learn them. This is science. A lot of studies have shown that once you've learned a language, the next one is easier to learn. The more you learn, the easier it gets. So when you learn a language, you can also learn a complete set of skills. You've got grammar, you've got memorization through vocabulary, you've got the reading skills, speaking skills, the pronunciation, comprehension, the writing skills, and so on. So there are a lot of advantages of learning a new language, and it definitely helps your brain. Especially helps you to get, the grammar concepts, as well as they train you on how to manipulate them and make sentences. So once you use it, it gets easier to learn other languages with the same features. Now take for example, when you learn French, that helps you in learning the other Romance languages. Now this set of languages all have the same Latin roots and they're very similar in grammar, sentence construction, as well as in their vocabulary. So knowing one Romance language is like a great start in learning the others. Therefore, French is a good grounding, let's say, for learning other languages, especially the Romance languages. You've got Spanish, Italian, Portuguese, Romanian, and even English, since half of the modern day English vocabulary is derived from French. Germany is known for qualitative research in science, philosophy, and other disciplines. Moreover, Germany is also quite famous for strict scholar discipline. And French, for that matter, is analytical language that structures thoughts and develops critical thinking. It is a language of great philosophers, Descartes, Sartre. They are known philosophers. They are eminent scientists. Pierre and Marie Curie, Pascal. So learning French, children also learn how to argue a case and present different points of view. Valuable skills for discussions and negotiation. And the German-speaking world has also produced some of the greatest literary, musical, artistic, philosophical minds in human history. It is the language of the famous written books of Goethe, Kafka, Brecht, Mann, and it was the native language of composers Mozart, Bach, Schubert, Beethoven, Wagner. Now, learning German gives you the opportunity to appreciate the masterpieces of these artists in the original form. So it lets you tap into the parts of the world's cultural heritage in a direct and unfiltered manner. For example, Goethe's Faust alone, which is completely written in rhyme form, is well worth the effort if you know German. And also, coming back to French, since it is spoken in so many countries, it also means that you will have access to different cities and wonders of the French-speaking world. In Europe, for example, you've got Belgium, Switzerland, Luxembourg. French is spoken as the main language. In Asia, you've got Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, Lebanon. All allows a different place to French. The ability to speak even a little French makes it so enjoyable to visit Paris and all the other regions of France and offer insights into the French culture and the way of life. Now, French also comes in handy while you're traveling to Africa, Switzerland, Canada, Monaco, Seychelles, and other places. In Africa, a lot of countries have French as the official and second language. They include Algeria, Morocco, Tunisia, Congo, Ivory Coast, Senegal, and much more of sub-Saharan countries. Quebec in Canada, for example, it's not the only place where French is spoken on the American continent. While it is the official language of Quebec, French is widespread in the states of Maine, Vermont, Louisiana. So all of these possibilities also mean that you will have the opportunity to learn about different regions, different cultures and dialects. And all of these countries all have their own cultures and tradition, and learning French or any other foreign language will help you get a better understanding of them, as well as to meet so many different interesting people. France, for example, is considered the language of culture. A French lesson is a cultural journey into the worlds of fashion, gastronomy, arts, architecture, and also science. So, learning French offers you access to works of great French writers. You've got Victor Hugo, Molière. French is also called language langue de Molière, language of Molière. Marcel Proust. Then you've got famous poets Victor Hugo, Charles Baudelaire, Jacques Prévert. So it means being able to hear the voices of the actors and the pleasure of being able to understand the words of French songs sung by Edith Piaf. So speaking French opens up opportunities for higher education and some of the France's best known universities. So students who've got a good level of French may be eligible to apply for a French government scholarship, and which leads to an internationally recognized postgraduate degree. So I would just like to throw light on some of the achievements of our students of the department who, after learning foreign languages, French and German both, they are placed today in Canada, in France, Switzerland, South Africa, Australia, Malaysia, and they're holding the Jaipur's flag high. They've been selected in Income Tax Department. They're working as IS officers. They're working in Ministry of External Affairs, Belgium. They're working in tourism sector, hotel industry. They're also working as tourist guides in France. Scores of students have been helped to go abroad to study on MOUs, or they are working as teaching assistants. Through International Student Exchange Program, the students get selected. They get exposed to the culture there, way of living, which is very important. The University of Rajasthan has also absorbed many ex-students who are working in several universities, not only in Rajasthan but across the entire nation. So almost all schools in Rajasthan, they have French and German as foreign languages. So all of them, they have our ex-students as teachers. So to conclude, I would just say that some people choose French and German because they are spoken in so many countries. Others enjoy exploring the rich literary, historical and cultural tradition of French and German speaking world. But there are others who learn because they want to read books originally written in these languages and not their translations. So, to sum up, I would say that learning foreign languages opens you up to the world and the vast opportunities present there. That the passports to another world and will open up new avenues before you. So, diverse cultures in contact with one another can create unprecedented opportunities for exchange, cooperation, and mutual benefit. Therefore, more languages you know, the better you can express yourself. Thank you so much. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am has rightly said, if you really want to experience culture of a country, if you really want to understand what the country wants to say or how it has contributed in the culture of the world, you need to experience it in a completely unadulterated form, and language really helps you in understanding the culture. So if you learn French, and French has been one language definitely which has contributed to the world culture as such in a huge way. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you, Nidhi, ma'am. On this note, I will now introduce our third speaker, Dr. Salvatore Giuffre. He is a young and enthusiastic sinologist who first graduated in East Asian languages and cultures, Chinese and Japanese, from the University of Bologna, then obtained a PhD in Chinese literature from the University of Lyon in France, and followed courses on Chinese language and pedagogy in China. Salvo has taught Chinese language, literature, and history at the University of Malta since 2015. His areas of interest and research include literary comparative studies between Chinese and Western literature, and Chinese philology, 9 European languages. He uses his linguistic knowledge to work on Chinese and European comparative literature, reading texts mainly in German, French, Italian, Spanish, apart from English. We're really delighted to have you here with us today, Dr. Salvatore, and over to you now.
Namaste, good afternoon. Am I audible? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, thank you. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you, and I'd like to thank Dr. Seema Agrawal, the principal of the college, and Dr. Preti Sharma, the coordinator, and my two colleagues who just preceded the panel, Dr. Nidhi and Sanjay Arora. Yes, it was really interesting to follow this amazing thread on this webinar, this international webinar. I'm now calling from Italy, from Sicily. So I would like to give you a very short introduction before I speak about my the topic of the talk, actually. Yes, you said right. As a young linguist, actually, I was born in Sicily. My first native language was Italian, and in the family we spoke Sicilian. Then I started learning French when I was 8 years old in the full immersion classes in primary school. So by the age of 11, I was already fluent speaking in French. Then in school, I also learned English. And then when I was 13, I picked German in school, and I studied that for like 8 years and then graduated in German. So having already mastered around 5 languages for me was quite easy to teach and actually learn first other languages by myself. So I took some courses in Spanish, and then Greek, and then Icelandic, and then Hebrew, modern Hebrew. Then I did Chinese and Japanese, moved to Malta, where I learned Maltese and Arabic and all that. So the tricky here is that as soon as you start learning one language or 2 and 3, is your brain automatically knows what to do with the rest of the other languages, and that's it. So one thing that I would like to talk to you about actually is my experience when I started learning foreign languages. And what happened to me is a change that actually happened in my character and in my self-confidence. I mean, we all understand, we all know that we live in a world that is now today, interestingly, connected with social media and correspondence. So while learning foreign languages, there are multiple thousands good reasons why it is important to learn foreign languages. Now, some of these reasons actually do have an effect on ourselves, on our behavior, and on the confidence and on the confidence that we have in ourselves. For example, when we make connections, when we make friendships and cooperations. And an interesting thing that happens when we learn foreign languages that I can tell you personally is an incredible development of new intellectual and communicative skills. As you start learning foreign languages, you start asking yourself questions in terms of communication, and you have an automatic restructuring, a mental restructuring when it comes to speaking and writing. You start asking yourself questions that before did not ask yourself. Then, of course, you have an incredible opportunity for finding gratification after achieving high linguistic levels. As my colleagues before have mentioned, learning English properly, proper spoken English and accuracy, and also my colleagues spoke about the importance of French. And I'd like to tell you something very important in Europe. When you are fluent in French and German, Italian, Spanish, and so on and so forth in English, I can tell you that you start then receiving an incredible amount of gratification, and as soon as you start achieving high linguistic levels. An incredible thing that happens when you learn foreign languages is you develop critical thinking, meaning people who speak more languages can spot information that is relevant faster than other societies or other people that tend to be monolingual, for example. And another thing is you develop multitasking skills. Achieving fluency in a new language with limited number of errors, because you train yourself in becoming better and better. So you tend to make fewer errors. As soon as you achieve that state of mind, you automatically start making fewer errors in other more or similar complex activities. So as soon as you achieve very good linguistic levels in, say, in a number of languages, any kind of other activity that you do, which is work related, you start automatically make fewer mistakes. Now, opportunities are great, and all these things do have an effect again on the confidence that we have in ourselves and on our character. For example, opportunities that are linked to work, study, gain valuable experience abroad. Say, for instance, the importance of learning languages like French or German in terms of European context. But what about learning other languages that are on the Asian continent, where India is located? For instance, Chinese or Japanese. So it gives, it opens up a plethora of opportunities to expand and learn more about the world and make a valuable experience. And as soon as you come back home, you have that new experience, with this fresh experience that is become automatically valuable. Of course, as soon as you achieve that, you work on your competitiveness and employability, because you automatically expand career options. Now, learning a new language can be also a mind opener. You see the world through different eyes and understand people better. Now, in terms of confidence, learning a foreign language brings fun. It can be fun, but it also helps us build confidence in our capabilities. And it is something that I have experienced myself already when I was in my teenage years. You make new friends, you want to make new friends, because as soon as you start learning a language like French, German, Chinese, or Spanish or Italian, if you like opera, for instance. When I was in China as a student, I was impressed by the number of Chinese students coming up to me, asking me to teach them how to read Italian opera, because they worked into music and they were really interested into that. So it brings up like new opportunities for friends. You enjoy and start appreciating movies that are in that language, literature and music of another language and culture. You also help people around. Imagine you in Jaipur or in India, you come across people or tourists of that given language that are in need. Soon after, then you start receiving admiration, compliments, and praises. Praises, all these give you motivation, encourage you, and make you feel good. So you can start seeing that as soon as you start learning a foreign language, you start then receiving and harvesting the fruit of it, encouragement, and that makes you feel better. It makes you feel good and makes you strive for more and get better and better. Now, learning a foreign language can also make us curious about new cultures and reveals new horizons. So automatically you start having a desire to travel and explore more, explore the world, to become more curious. Could it be related to studies? Could it be related to work? Gaining a scholarship, for instance, to study in a very good French or German or British university. But that learning a foreign language before has opened you like a huge amount of opportunities, and also has given you that, has instilled in you that desire to learn more and to explore more. Now, learning about other cultures makes us also learn more about ourselves. It actually helps us learn more about our own culture. Deeper understanding of ourselves eventually leads to personal growth. So learning a foreign language, be it French or German or Chinese, you take your own culture, you take your own level or your own language, and you automatically compare it to that language that you're learning, and you basically get a deeper understanding of yourself, a deeper understanding of your identity, a deeper understanding of your own language and culture. And it enhances your personal growth and self-confidence. Another thing, what is self-confidence? You all know, you're students, I was a student myself not long ago. Self-confidence is a feeling of trust in your own abilities, right? So your qualities and judgment. So achieving good levels in a foreign language can bring satisfaction and it can boost confidence in yourselves. Learning new languages help us discover new talents. You never knew, for instance, that you had actually a new talent. So it helps us learn more about ourselves, and it makes us actually believe in our talents and in our capabilities. So it helps us understand more about ourselves and also on the way we learn or relate with the world, how we relate to others. Languages are communication tools. As soon as we start learning a language, you are actually getting into a huge, mysterious, and extraordinary dimension of communication. So, as I said before, praise and satisfaction from learning a foreign language make us want to work more, devote more energy to our performances. And guess what? We do perform better when we start feeling confident in ourselves. Self-confidence also has positive effects on how we see ourselves and then also how we see others. Then learning foreign languages enable us to try new things. That is the most amazing thing about learning a foreign language. You start gaining that curiosity and that ambition to start learning new things. You want to learn more and more. And the more we succeed, the more we believe in ourselves and in our capabilities. I can tell you this, what happened to me when I was a student in China. The moment I started receiving praises from local people, I started really understanding like, okay, so I can do it. And the more you start believing in your success, the more you enhance your capabilities. And then you strive for better and better results. As you can see, it's a lifelong process that never ends. And then, of course, something very important, you want to work as a translator, as an interpreter, content writer, editor, you learn foreign languages and automatically that enables self-improvement. Self-improvement is a key essential element in today's world where we have a high demand in competitive people that are employable, that are competent, that are talented. So you see already, starting learning a new language gives you the opportunity to improve yourself, to put yourself into a situation where you grow and all that. Now, how do we achieve this self-confidence? So first of all, learning foreign languages can draw us into competition games. Those can be healthy, competition can be healthy, but if I'm taking now the aspect of self-confidence, I would encourage you not to compare yourselves to others. Number one, simply because every learner has unique and different abilities and learning techniques. So that is number one. Building your self-confidence in learning a foreign language, stop comparing yourself to your peers. Competition can be healthy, but at times can also not bring you good results. So that's number one. Number two, learning foreign languages also connects us with people from different cultures and beliefs. Therefore, it is important that we start connecting with positive people who can lift us up and encourage us to strive more. And I tell you that as soon as you start learning a foreign language, you are apt to make mistakes on a daily basis. So it is important that you start choosing the right pen pals, your friends, native speakers who actually help you, but people who are positive and can actually help you and who will lift you up and who make you feel confident and therefore give you the encouragement and motivation to strive and do more. Another thing, self-compassion is mandatory when you start learning a foreign language. What do I mean by that? When learning a foreign language, we need to start treating ourselves with kindness when we make mistakes or we fail. It is, as I said, a communication skill. Languages are alive, okay? It's like living creatures almost. And as soon as we interact with these communication tools, with these languages, we need to start feeling kindness for ourselves. We need to give ourselves time to get ourselves accustomed, familiarize ourselves, to get to know this foreign language first, to start learning the rudiments, and then slowly, as I said, it's a lifelong process. You may know the English saying, practice makes perfect, okay? So that is essential, self-compassion. Another cool thing about learning foreign language is that it gives us the possibility to apply positive self-talk. For instance, I can do it. Of course, for instance, if they did it, I'm sure I can do it. I can do it. I can try it. We should remind ourselves that we can do it better next time. As I said, learning foreign languages gives you also the opportunity of making mistakes. Therefore, we learn from our mistakes. Those are not lifelong stains. They're not failures. It's just, I can do it better next time. And you start also appreciate what we have learned so far, thinking what you have achieved being happy with what you have learned so far, rather than thinking what I still do not know. And last thing, very important, is that learning new languages help us face our fears. I can tell you that I was a very, well, I'm still am, but I was clearly much more when I was in my teenage years. I was very shy. I was tremendously shy. I was so shy. And I can tell you that when you start learning foreign languages, you start facing some of your fears. For instance, you start speaking in public in that given language. You start feeling embarrassed. So all these things start now being questioned, and you work on your fears. And the more we face our fears, the more we develop self-confidence. And this is, of course, experience that I can share with you that comes from my lifelong process of learning foreign languages. I am a translator, literary translator. I translate mainly poetry, and I interact with texts, which is mostly written language between French, German, Italian, and English, and then how it interacts with other texts in Asia, such as in Chinese and Japanese. So I can tell you that then learning these languages can actually make you feel better. You see the world from different perspective. You interact with others, and you enlarge your cultural knowledge, your general knowledge, and you start appreciating what you do, especially if that is something that you love doing. And I'm sure that there isn't anything better than working on something that you have a passion for, something that you particularly like, something that gives you stimulus, something that gives you encouragement, and something that gives you gratification at the end of the day. So I think that is very, very important. Okay, thank you so much for your patience and for listening to what I had to share with you today. Thank you. And thank you so much, Ankita, for this opportunity that you gave me to share. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Salvatore. It was wonderful listening to you, and thank you for giving our students insights into the basic learning process of learning languages. Because it is only through an experienced person that we can actually know what goes on behind the learning process, the actual process behind learning a new language, like French or German or Chinese or Japanese, as for that matter. Thank you so much. Please be with us for some more time. I hope, please don't leave the meeting right now. Okay. Yes. So now the panel is open for question and answer session. Preeti ma'am, can we take up the questions?
Yeah, there are a few questions in the chat box, I think, so we can
Yes.
pick them up.
Yes.
There's one question from Purva Bansal from where can we do masters in French? I think Nidhi ma'am would be able to answer this question.
A master's in French can be done at Rajasthan University, Department of European Languages. So the minimum qualification that we require for a master is either a post diploma in French or a DELF B1 level, along with your graduation. Then you can apply for these courses. So very soon we've got this online application invited for masters in French. You can apply.
So this is one question. I think I'll make it this way: that what are the various opportunities if we pursue a certificate course in German, or maybe a course in German? So
With certificate course in German, the possibilities, the job prospects are pretty mild, as in like, you need at least a diploma course or a minimum of A2 level, what I say, in order to get, job offers in multinationals or embassies. You need at least an A2. A B1 is better. I mean, you have to have more credits. I mean, A1, less candidates apply, so the job prospects are pretty less. So you need to do at least a diploma course. That is the next year after certificate.
there's one question from Muskan Mathur. Is it compulsory to get certified in any of the foreign languages to mention it in our resume? Is it not countable or valued as a skill if we know to speak any language without any certification? That's a good question, though. If
Well,
any of the speakers can answer to this question.
Well, if you're working as a freelance, for me, I was a freelance translator. So in that case, you don't really require a degree. But if you're really looking for jobs, then I think a certification is absolutely mandatory. I mean, maybe
Thank you,
the
ma'am.
other speakers can give
Yeah,
their.
if other
Yes,
speakers would also.
yes, I can say that I live in Europe, and in Europe it is very important to get certified. So when you learn a foreign language like French, German, Spanish, Italian, or so on and so forth, it is almost mandatory to do these international examinations like IELTS, like TOEFL, or like the DELF for French, and so on and so forth. You put them on your curriculum, and actually it enhances the possibility of being called for an interview. And it is also important if you want to study in a university. In France, for example, DALF or DELF, depending if it's an undergraduate or a postgraduate course, it is important. For example, when I did my PhD in France, it was important for me to have a C1, for example. And without that, on a paper, I could not do that. Same applies in Germany, same applies in the UK, same applies in France, in Italy, and so on and so forth. So I would encourage you to take the chance of learning a foreign language and also putting yourself into this challenge. Sitting out for these certificates, these exams, actually gives you a good understanding where you are, your level of it, and how much you still have to learn. There are some courses, some universities actually that look at the date when you took the exam because they might expire. For instance, universities do not accept courses or certificates that are older than 2 years, and so on and so forth. So it is important that I can tell you from a European perspective, knowing a foreign language is absolutely amazing. If you can get it certified, it's even better.
Okay, can I add in terms of English? Can I add
Please, sir.
something about IELTS?
Yes, sir.
Probably this question relates to foreign languages, so it could be a little off track. But talking about English and this certification in terms of IELTS, now those of you who intend to go abroad either for studies or for jobs, especially in Canada, Australia, New Zealand, so if you have an authentic, because you're going to a native country, you're going to a native land, so there they would not rely on your local certification. They need a certification which is more standardized, which is more authentic, which is globally acceptable, because the standards on which these tests work, TOEFL or IELTS, they are well researched tests, and they keep on changing the parameters. Also means they keep on changing those things, and they try to make it more at that level of universities and colleges where test takers would thereafter be going and doing their master's degree, or maybe doing their research there, or even for that matter maybe at the undergraduate level. Because I've seen that most of the education there in the West is primarily based on these kind of parameters where, say, if you're writing an answer, so you have to make a comparison and contrast. You have to write extended answers. You have to be more analytical and critical. Now, this is what our system of education does not prepare you for. So that's why that certification is not, in fact, acceptable, even if it is, say, 100 on 100 in your CBSE English exam, or maybe an 80% in your undergraduation, or 70% in your masters. So still further, you need that level of competence certification. So that is why IELTS and TOEFL are these standard exams which universities across the globe accept. TOEFL, in fact, in American universities, and IELTS across the globe. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. There's one question. I think put it this way: that is it okay to learn any foreign language through online mode?
Well, if I have to answer this, it's easy to learn any foreign language through applications, but I just give you a simple example here. So doing learning a language on an application like Google, for example, it's not as authentic as you can do it in a classroom teaching, for example. So let me quote this example where I was once translating this menu card for Le Méridien Hotel, and the whole menu card was in French, and there was this dish which named poached eggs. And I was looking at the translation in French, and which said the eggs that are hunted illegally. And that's how they put it on the menu card. And I was absolutely amazed at the translation, because I said, where did you take this translation from? They said it's from Google. So, that is the difference when you learn from an application, an online thing, and you do it, in a real classroom. So I think learning is definitely possible, but it's not as authentic as you can get it in the classroom, I believe.
I think it is more about virtual mode, ma'am. I think because nowadays we are running all the virtual classes, so I think they must be interested in knowing that would it be okay if we go for virtual mode of learning. But then your answer was, I think, it answered
Yeah.
everything.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so the next question is, what are the opportunities after learning Japanese language?
I don't know exactly the situation in India. I can only tell you how it works in Europe, okay, and how it works actually in Asia. There are plenty of opportunities in Japan for two main reasons. One is because most Japanese people tend to be a monolingual society, so they actually struggle learning a foreign language, like even English. That's one. So people who actually are capable and competent in speaking a language like Japanese have the possibility of engaging both in your own country, say in India or Germany, with Japanese companies, simply because from the other side, it is much harder for them to find a local Japanese person who can interact either in German or in French or so on and so forth. That's number one. Number two is the incredible economic power of Japan, which has a lot of job opportunities in engineering, in sciences, and for instance in cars, for example, manufacturing, computers, and so on and so forth. So learning a foreign language along with doing, for instance, another degree like in engineering or computer sciences and so on and so forth, and then getting a language like in this case Japanese, clearly opens up a new bunch of possibilities both in Japan and in your own country. That's what I can tell you from a European perspective.
Thank you, Dr. Salvo. There are a few more questions. I think I'll just club up these two questions, and that would be the last question we'll take up because we are already running out of time. So, how is it helpful to learn and speak a foreign language, and which foreign language has highest job opportunities? The third question is, how can we speak foreign language? So that I think the first two questions, that how is it helpful to learn and speak foreign language, and which foreign language has the highest job opportunities? Japanese, Dr. Salvo has already told us about.
I
Anything
think
additional you would? Yeah.
Yes, I might say that it actually depends on where you are. I might say this because if you are, for example, in Singapore or in Hong Kong, clearly the most important language after English is Japanese. If you live in a country like France, your major foreign language you want to learn is English, and then another strong language, be it Russian or Arabic. Okay, in Europe now there is European languages. Everybody, all students in every school learn European languages. We finish our school certificates with A2 B1 level in at least 2 European languages. So now there is the interest in learning another language which is outside the box, be it Russian, Arabic, or Chinese, or Japanese, and so on and so forth. So it actually depends on your geographical context and see what opportunities you have in your country. For example, I can tell you in some of my colleagues who work in Africa, okay, in Nigeria, Chinese is, for example, the most important language in terms of job opportunities because China is incredibly investing a huge amount of money in these African countries. They create a lot of job opportunities, okay? There are many companies that open, and they make the future for younger generations who learn English from school, their own local language, and then they learn a language like Chinese. So it actually depends on the place where you live.
Can Nidhi ma'am add on to this from the point of view of
Yeah, I
living in
agree
India?
with what Dr. Salvo said. In fact, it definitely depends on where you're living. For example, if you're talking about Rajasthan, so there's a lot of scope for tourism sector here. So a lot of tourists, in fact, 70% of the tourists who are coming to Rajasthan, they come from French and Francophone countries. So there's a lot of demand of tourist guides, escorts who are learning French and German also, because there are a lot of German tourists. So, it definitely depends on where you live. So in Rajasthan, if I talk specifically, then yes, French and German both are the languages that are sought after.
So Ankita, I think that's all with the questions. We can get into the last segment of the webinar.
Thank you so much, Preeti ma'am. Thank you to all our panelists for answering the questions of the students. I now invite Dr. Rashmi Chaturvedi, our director, to give us some words of observation. Ma'am, over to you.
Madam, I think you're muted. Probably you have to unmute yourself.
Yes. This was wonderful listening to all these three speakers whose observations and whose speech cut across the strata of culture, language, profession, jobs, speech, knowing a language, and a lot of other things which they have connected, with which they have connected in their speeches. And I'm glad that Preeti has put together such a great panel for teachers and students. Uh, Dr. Sanjay Arora, Dr. Nidhir Singhani, and Dr. Salvo. We, two of them we have heard for the first time. Dr. Sanjay Arora, of course, is a familiar name and a familiar face, and we have heard him quite a few times. While I was listening to you, I just thought that knowing a new language, it doesn't only enhances your job prospects, it tells you more about yourself. When Britishers brought three universities to India, English literature and language was one of the subjects that they taught. And you would be surprised to know that in these three regions where these three universities came, the local dialect, the local literature flourished the best. The reason was that in the presence of the other, you explore yourself, you recognize yourself, you know your weaknesses, and you know your commitments also to yourself, to your own culture. So it is important to know a new language in this context also. And I would like to tell you about a film which I saw, which was a Pakistani film and was banned in Pakistan. But we saw this in India. And this was a film about accused who was caught for a very small pretext, and his mother, when he from Pakistan, when he went to America, his mother had given him a locket, in which she had written one ayat of Quran by her own hand, and she has put that Quran, that ayat, in the locket that this boy was wearing. So when he was caught, everything was searched. This also came up, and in that area, nobody knew Arabic. So this could not be translated. And because this could not be translated, he remained in prison for several years. And finally, this is just an example how when you go out and when your language, like you know the language of your country, but the language uh, and you know the language of the country you are visiting. But it is also important that the country you visit knows you and your language also. And that's why, after 9/11, you would be surprised to know the number of departments in Arabic that were set up in US universities was because most of these young boys, the terrorists, although they were all educated and they knew English, but they spoke in Arabic. And because they spoke in Arabic, the conversation that was going on in the plane in Arabic, people sitting there could not understand what they were trying to communicate. And it is after this that Arabic became an important language in America, and a number of centers were set up. Anyway, this was just a story, but this is rooted in reality. So all fiction is rooted in reality, and that's why important to know a new language is for various reasons. You know yourself, you come across the other side of the world, and through them you recognize yourself and you realize what is to be done about yourself. That's why it's important to know other languages also. Um, in this college also, we are trying to set up a center where students can learn other languages, because as the world has gone global, the jobs are not confined only to this country. And even if you get a job in this country, you may be required to go out to do a project with some other country and to know that language. I know there are various MNCs here who send their employees to either Japan or China or Germany or France, or where English is not an important language, although we have known other languages through English. But English is not spoken in some of these countries. So it becomes important for them to know those languages. And uh, I think uh, today's session must have been very, very informative even for the students, because for us English, only English is enough now, because we were born at the time when knowing English was also very, very important. It's not, it is important even now, but we know in metros and in some of the states, English has almost become the first language in families. And although we knew it as the second language and all other languages are the third languages, and but we know them only through English. So knowing English is very, very important. Learning English is very, very important, because and when you learn any other language, it disturbs the networking of your brain. The networking of your brain is set up differently, because you know a lot of things which your brain did not touch before that. So also it is very important. Anyway, thank you very much, all the panelists, and it was really informative and it was really very comprehensive. We just cut across various sections, and we are grateful to you to be here. Thank you to be there on this court. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for your words of encouragement, your constant support. I now invite Dr. Preeti Sharma, the coordinator for the event, to propose a formal vote of thanks. Ma'am, over to you.
Thank you, Ankita. This is the most pleasant task, but it is getting the minimum time of in every session. It should be the most prolonged task of expressing the gratitude, and I'm highly privileged to get this pleasant task of expressing this gratitude towards our distinguished speakers of this international webinar. Sir, Dr. Sanjay Arora, sir, thank you for always readily accepting the invitation. Sir has been my teacher, and it is always a treat to hear from sir whenever he is speaking on the mic or on any podium. And he has been my role model since I was his student. I'm grateful to Dr. Nidhir Singhani, madam. Thank you very much for that lovely presentation, for that lovely speech of yours. And it is always a pleasure meeting you. You have been to college also once for one of my orientation programs for German and French certification courses. Dr. Salvo, I have heard a lot of praises of you from Ankita. I think you have been connected from pretty long time with her, and I'm really, really thankful to Ankita for having you here with us today. And of course, a special thanks goes to you for adding, the cherry to the cake with your presence and making this show as the international show. And we are looking forward that you visit Jaipur soon, and we can invite you here in the campus and have a
Thank
direct
you.
interaction with the students. Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you so
Thank you
much.
for being here with us today.
Thank you.
We are highly grateful to all the participants, and of course, my special thanks goes to Director Ma'am and Principal Madam for believing in us and supporting this webinar, and all the audience. I mean, there was an overwhelming response. We could not admit a lot of students here. They were personally messaging me. Then I had to share the YouTube link with them. But then, yes, of course, they wanted to personally interact with all the speakers because they have made the show so insightful. So thank you once again, all the speakers. Thank you, Ankita, for moderating the show. And thank you, everybody. I'm also overwhelmed with the kind of responses we have got for this webinar. So thank you once again. We hope to see all of you all soon physically present here in the college.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank
Preeti
you.
ma'am, before we
Please do
leave,
not leave the platform. Can we just turn on the videos, all of the participants? So the speakers are already on with the videos. I can just click and capture this moment. Participants can also turn on their videos, please. So here we go. Just a moment. Thank you so much. Thank you so much once again. I've shared the information about the certificate courses of French and German which we are running here in the college. The form has been shared on the chat box. The students who have any queries can contact me personally.
thank you
Thank you for
so
your
much.
presence, everybody.
Thank you so much, Preeti ma'am. And we can now formally end the event. Thanks a lot, everyone, for being a part of this international webinar on foreign languages, significance, and avenues. Thank you.
Thank you, Ankita. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.